Welcome to the second episode of B.Y.O.B, Conversations with Berneta and Lornett. We are here discussing the first book of the Faders and Alphas series, Eve and the Faders, which is available widely. You can get it wherever, even if you live outside the country. And as Lornett would say, even from the great Satan, Amazon. Today, we will be discussing another question about the book. Last time we talked about Agent U, one of the central characters in the story. This time we want to talk a little bit about the tone and like the feel of the story. So I'll let Lornett start with the question.
Yes, so the question comes from little Jimmy in Blue Ridge, Georgia. So in the narrative, characters humorously reference well-known comic books and movies when strange things happen. What is the role of wit and humor in the novel? And how would you describe Haynes and Vestal's authorial voices? Would you like to take this?
No, you go ahead and go first.
All right, let me talk. First off, Oprah, put us on your book club, so we can sell some more copies, you know what I'm saying? But thinking about humor and wit, obviously I'm joking about Oprah's book club, but not really. But when it comes to the story, I think it's very important in the writing process, at least for myself, and I maybe can speak for Berneta, but I'm not going to because she's her own independent woman. I think.
Why are you condescending with the whole? She's her own independent woman, just because it's Women's History Month. Do continue.
Happy Women's History Month. But I think novels are, even if you're talking about fantasy worlds and extraordinary abilities, kind of like the characters in Eve and the Faders, in that universe, in the Faders and Alpha universe in general, these are people with different abilities. However, in real life, humor is a part of our everyday. It's how we get by. In good times, bad times, people always need a little laugh, and sometimes a little snarkiness, a little humor. We're not gonna go full Josh Whedon in this story, so don't worry about that. So it's not snarky, but it's a little bit of wit, a little bit of humor, and kind of makes the novel, even with the heaviness sometimes that comes up in our novel, it can balance it out. So you need to find balance, a bit of humor, a bit of drama, a bit of action, melted together perfectly.
And at the end of the day, if you're living in some strange world where people suddenly have all kinds of weird powers, some of the shit would be funny at the end of the day. If you woke up one day just looking like Amy Adams after spending your whole life looking like Erykah Badu, that might be funny. You might as well just go ahead and roll with the laughs of it. If you are, unknowingly actually removing a bullet from someone and they have no idea what just happened, but all of a sudden the bullet is out of them, they might be like, well, that's some X-Men shit. What's actually going on right here? If you are a tiny little petite woman who almost chokes out a man, the Wonder Woman jokes sort of write themselves. So it's really important to keep a sort of lighthearted mindset when you're writing a story that has these fantasy elements that are really kind of, at their very fundamental level, pretty ridiculous. But that's part of the universe. And I feel like if we're trying to tell a story that feels real, despite those fantasy elements, it's always nice to have characters, responding to those things the way real people would respond to them. So that's and some of my favorite shows, like Lornett said, are some of those ones where people kind of are very self-referential and they really are very aware of the ridiculousness of the plots that they are thrown in. Buffy, yes. What else?
As a Resident Alien.
Resident Alien, for sure.
Black Lightning to an extent.
Kind of, yeah, definitely Black Lightning.
Yeah, I think the main character takes himself seriously, but I think some of the side, and the daughter, but some of the side characters don't.
Yeah, that's true. Wait a minute, which daughter takes herself too seriously? Which one?
The Thunder.
Okay.
Does the whole...
Yes, Thunder just doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but we can digress on that. So even the Faders, there are characters who are, very serious, and there are characters who are not so serious, and then there are other characters who are just kind of reacting to the circumstances that are crazy. And sometimes people will just have to crack a joke to kind of ease the tension, especially in high stress situations.
Actually, now that I think about it more, I think Eve is a little bit like Thunder, where she's a little bit too serious about herself. Now that I'm sitting there thinking about it, yeah. she does take herself just a tad too seriously.
I mean, the character is 25, and I think, in your early 20s, that's probably, some people will take themselves seriously. Hopefully they get out of there as they get older, but some people, it only doubles down on it. So.
And but speaking of this, like, the balance is necessary. Some characters taking themselves too seriously, and then others being a little bit more lighthearted and able to sort of crack a joke is I think pretty important. And we've all seen those movies where there is no balance and everyone in there is too serious. And I don't know if we should try to alienate any particular fans right now, but I'll let you jump in because I know you have your thoughts about such movies that actually lack that balance.
Yeah, I just think kind of movies that take themselves too seriously, especially when it's kind of a ridiculous plot piece and it's overly serious, is just not good. One movie comes to mind is like a total B movie, it's like Dragon Wars, and it's a total B movie, and everybody in there is acting like it's 24 or something like that. So it's just kind of ridiculous that movies that take themselves so seriously. People should sometimes, with ridiculous plots, go the path of Face Off, where everybody knows that this is ridiculous and they're just going about it. I mean, there's probably lots of cocaine involved in shooting that movie.
Face Off.
Yes, but no cocaine involved in writing even the Faders. We just created a universe. And then I guess the other part of the question is, how will we describe our voices? So since I'm Vesta, you're Haynes, how would I describe my voice in the story? I think humor is important. I think wit is important, but I also think the most important thing is telling the story. And I think sometimes some authors can lose track of trying to tell a message versus a story. And that's the purpose of a story, is to tell a story. If you have a message in there, that's good, but you should focus on the story first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I focus on story. I do not center message whenever I'm sitting down to write a story. To me, it's all about the characters. It's about what they do. It's about the plot. If there's a message in there, maybe I'm thinking about it in the revision stage, but I'm not thinking about it as I sit down and write. And and that has led to people, reading things that I wrote and being like, oh, you have a lot of sort of detailed kinds of, thoughts in there about like motherhood and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, really? Because I wasn't trying to have a message about motherhood, but that's fine if it's in there. And it's actually a really good, discussion point if that comes through. I like to be able to tell a story and let people really sort of run with it. And sort of, come up with their own meaning and so forth, rather than trying to, tell them what they should, interpret as the meaning.
Yeah, and I think kind of with Even the Faders, how we approached it in the Fader and Alpha series is really, would this be a story or a film or if this is turned to a movie, or this is a book we picked up that wasn't ours and we just read it, will we enjoy it? And would that be something that we want to read? So I think the most important thing as an author should be, if you're writing stories, especially in the realm of fiction, no matter what it is, romance, sci-fi, fantasy, or whatever, you should be focused on telling a story that's enjoyable, but also a story that you would enjoy, not what you think everybody would enjoy, but what you would like to pick up, because you should be a fan of your own work.
And that's the message. Write what you want to read. There's not always the books out there that we want to read, so sometimes we have to write them. So write what you want to read. I wanted to write, and Lornett wanted to write something that was fantasy oriented, centered, Black and people of color characters, had a little bit of lightheartedness to it, but also some action and mystery and all that stuff. And we put it all in, and some romance. And we put it all in here in one book with all kinds of little quippy references to other comic books and things like that that we actually enjoy.
Yeah.
And we hope other people who read it will enjoy it as well. So yeah, I think that's today's episode of B.Y.O.B. Stay tuned for the next episode. These happen on a monthly, semi-monthly basis. We'll be tackling another question. In case you're wondering about where you can find some of these discussion questions, they are on our site. They actually look like this. They're at BernetaHaynes.com. And we created them so that if you have a book club or discussion group and you don't want to spend time coming up with questions, there's some ready-made ones. So you can find them at BernetaHaynes.com. And thank you for joining us.
Cheers.
Wait a minute, I need to get my glass. All right. Cheers.